welcome back. This will be the last lecture video module for our series on educational pathways in pharmacy. We've learned a little bit about the history of our educational process for pharmacists. We've learned about the disciplines. We learned about professional education, specifically PharmD training, and even residencies and fellowships already. This will be the final piece of that puzzle. I want us to think a little bit about graduate research education in pharmacy, specifically typically the PhD degree, but also sometimes Master of Science as well. You know, I'm interested in you being able to make distinctions between programs. We know that graduate professional education like the PharmD is preparing you for practice. We've learned that these kinds of programs have a didactic component in the classroom. They also have an experiential program out in the clinics and in the practice sites. And we've also learned that graduate research education programs like the PhD prepares you for research. And these programs include an advanced didactic component, advanced classroom activities, but they also add the research training as well. And you know, if you think about this, these professional programs are there to help you apply knowledge to patient care. Graduate programs and the PhD type programs are there to help you generate new knowledge. Equally important, different focus of the different programs and also different kinds of training. So I'd like you to understand here in this module a little bit about what it means to be a graduate student. Well, here's our old friend AACP, the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy. They produce every year a thing called Vital Statistics. If you go to their website, aacp.org, you can look at these vital statistics. It has all kinds of information on all the colleges, what kinds of programs they offer, how many students are enrolled. We already learned that there are 129 colleges of pharmacy in the United States, and all of those have PharmD programs, and the number of students in those programs is over 60,000. You know, it's by far the largest number of students in any kind of program in pharmacy. But let's look at the graduate research side. 71 of those 129 schools also offer the master's or PhD programs, and with something over 4,000 students enrolled in those. So the numbers are lower, but again, different emphases, equally important, just kind of different sorts of preparation for where you want to be. I'd like to spend a few minutes with you talking about the goals and benefits of graduate research education. And let's think about things like acquisition of knowledge. So certainly when you go into any educational program, I think you're assuming you're going to learn things. Certainly in a PhD type program, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to sit in the classroom, you're going to take advanced study. You're going to learn a lot through what you're researching and the things that you're learning through your literature reviews and all that. Secondly, you're going to generate knowledge, and I think this is really kind of a key part of being in a graduate program, that we are going to generate things that we didn't know before. We have questions that we're asking, and we're going to try to answer those questions. And so it's really important in terms of how we progress our disciplines and how we progress healthcare. And then we're going to develop research and writing skills in these kinds of programs. How can I become a good researcher? How do I do that independently? And writing. I mean, how important that is in any field. But you know, how can I not only research and learn new knowledge, but how can I translate that in a way that other people will be able to understand it and be able to use it? I encourage you to think about your writing skills, whether you're headed in this direction or another direction, really critical to being successful. Other goals and benefits of this kind of curricula, we're going to develop teaching and presentational skills. So most often our graduate students in the research side are involved as teaching assistants or as research assistants, and they're interacting with students in various ways. Or they may be giving presentations at national meetings or at scientific symposia or in seminars within their division in the work that they're doing. It's important for you to know that these students get support. Again, PharmD students are paying tuition to get through that program. PhD students typically not. Typically their program picks up their tuition and also pays them a small stipend so that they can live. So you know, here's a way to get through school without having to accumulate a lot of debt, quite frankly, in terms of a graduate research degree. And then I want you to be aware that we've talked about these programs separately, PharmD, PhD, and the like. But sometimes students will combine these kinds of training. And we have several students in our program in many colleges across the country the same way, earning a PharmD/PhD program. They're actually working toward both. We also have students who are combining their PharmD with other kinds of training. For example, an MBA, a Master's in Business Administration, or a Master's in Public Health. Actually, you're going to be meeting one of our students who has worked closely with me. Her name is Evelyn Entam in one of our interview modules this week. Evelyn is a PharmD MPH student, so she has some dreams of things she'd like to accomplish in public health, and she'll share those with you in that video. But understand that sometimes it might make sense to combine these different kinds of training depending on what you intend to do in your career. I want to talk a little bit about components of these kinds of research training programs. First of all, they are competitive like anything else. You apply, you take a thing called the Graduate Record Exam, which is a standardized test. So, PharmD students take the PCAT, PhD students take the Graduate Record Exam, or GRE. When you are admitted to these programs, you're usually assigned a graduate advisor, somebody who will be your primary professor to help guide you through this process. And usually also have a faculty committee that works with that advisor to help determine what's the best training program for you in terms of where you want to go and what you need to kind of fill the gaps. These students will take advanced coursework, usually for several years, and then they will sit for what's called candidacy exams. They'll take a series of exams over the material that they've learned. If they pass that, they become a candidate, and they go on and finish their research project. That's a really important piece of this because, again, this is about training you to be a researcher, right? So you do a project, you write a thesis from that. In the case of a PhD, we'll call it a dissertation. And then you will do what is called defend that dissertation. So you will present it to your committee or others who may want to engage with you in that presentation and tell them what you did, tell them what you found, and answer questions and see if you can defend what you did. Along the way, I told you that you're usually being supported. You're not paying tuition. You're usually getting a stipend. And you may also be supported by certain things like graduate teaching, research, or administrative assistantships. So maybe I'm doing some teaching. I'm a teaching assistant. Maybe I'm a research assistant or administrative assistant. And these things provide funding for me as well. So here's our pharmacy fundamental for today. It's Doctor of Philosophy or PhD. Previously, we had a pharmacy fundamental PharmD, so I'll be very disappointed if you can't tell the difference between these two programs and really articulate what the differences are. PhD program is a graduate program including advanced study and research training. PhD students typically complete several years of advanced coursework in their discipline, conduct an original research project, and defend a dissertation relating to their work. Here's our discussion forum question. If you think you might be interested in pursuing a graduate research program like the PhD in the future, what types of things could you be doing right now to prepare? I'll see you next time.